If you're a potential seller at the moment listening to this podcast, what would your top tips be to any potential seller thinking of selling at the moment?
Always test the market before launching to the major portals. You never know what you might end up with, like for example, Park Drive significantly over. Imagine if we just went to market at that price. Would we have just got that price? It's always good to test.
Over my career, and I know exactly why people don't want to register with agents, is because they are fed up of being bombarded and sold to time and time again every single week. They've got a property to sell. Are you coming on the market? It's an old estate agency tactic. It's just hound you until you get bored. Yet we're slightly different in what we do. If you're a buyer looking for a property right now, what would you be doing?
I would be checking social medias of all the estate agents in my town. What do they do for me as a buyer?
Hey, Chris from Harrison's Homes, and welcome to our New Year's podcast in 2026. I said I'm Chris from Harrison's Homes, and this is...
I'm Ben from Harrison's Homes.
And today we're going to do a little bit of a freestyle about what we're actually seeing in the market and what the last year has done, and also what early signs we're seeing in 2026. So, Ben, you're on the shop floor.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
So, yeah, new year, and it's definitely kick-started in a way that I think all of us kind of expected last year. It's almost had that delayed fuse, but the market in its entirety, to generalise, has picked up massively in two major sort of areas, at least that we've seen in the first 13 days as of recording this. First of all, be your mid-range, 300 to 500,000 pound homes, which is normally your sort of families upsizing, etc., or in some cases a first home. But that is a really strong area of the market at the moment, and I know you've got some data around that. And also something that has been a bit of a struggle, and I think it should be spoken about openly, is the sale of flats over the last couple of years, or leaseholds in general. It's skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've got a flat at the moment, had a decent level of interest last year, but nothing in the way of an offer. And now we've got two people fighting over it in the first 13 days of the year. Wonderful.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, obviously, giving obviously a bit of background on 2025 going into this year. So ultimately, what we have seen is we've actually seen an increase in the amount of properties actually that's coming to the market. That's increased by 2.46%. So there's a little bit of a increase there. Sales agreed, they've gone up of 5.41%. So again, year on year from 24 going into 25, there's been an increase. But the really interesting thing that I've seen is since 2016, I've been following online activity and what's actually been happening throughout the year. And interestingly enough, this first couple of weeks of January, the amount of registrations that we've had, the amount of actual online views is the highest I've seen it since 2016. So for me, I'm not saying that the market's going to absolutely rocket, but going back to 2016, it was a very, very good year. The market did increase, but the signs are, and going back to what you were just saying there, family homes. When we start to see them move, there's a little bit more confidence about the market. I think, if I said, I don't really like to talk politics. We won't go down that route. But ultimately, are we now starting to see potentially a little bit more stability in the market? What's your thoughts?
Well, it does look that way. It's stability and another keyword, confidence. There's a lot of confidence in the market. And you see that with, multiple offers on properties. People are not afraid to sort of break the asking price, as it were. And if you look back at all the strong markets, that's when, everyone's wishing for a market like that, sellers and buyers. And in all the strong markets, you say 2016, for an example, it was kind of a normality then. If you wanted to secure it, you might be up against one or two people, which is not always a bad thing from a buyer's perspective either. You don't want to really buy in isolation. You don't want to have that one house, do you, that sat on the market for a year and nobody's offered, nobody wants it. You kind of want the one that people want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think, as I said, when you're talking stability, actually, because again, sometimes that could be deemed as quite negative in my view, because last year it was sort of wobbling, wasn't it? It was up and down, and there was no real confidence about what the market's doing, even though year on year, obviously, the figures are increasing in the right direction. Maybe not for people buying, but ultimately it's going the right way. So I feel, as I said, when we start to see these deals happening and people actually noticing that, as I said, properties are selling quite quickly. Like, for instance, right, let's talk about like Park Drive, we've just taken on, right? You go back a year or two, there was a number of properties on there, one of the most desirable roads in Sittingbourne, yet they were taking months to sell, let alone, obviously, potentially weeks. And we've just taken one on, and we actually took it on over the Christmas period, didn't we?
Yeah, so...
you obviously talk through what's happening on that one.
Well, it was actually one I went out to with yourself, originally just over a year ago. It wasn't quite the right time then. Maybe you were seeing the same sort of trends. But we started as we would with any property, and that's we do the 2 weeks off market where we get our best buyers, people that we deal with, proceedable, good to go, finances checked, etc., through the door, just to ensure a few things. Ultimately, to get a head start on the market, but make sure, as an agent, that we've got the advice right. We can base things on data, but the reality of the market's often different. Long story short, we had about 4 viewings actually off market within the first week. And that's what you kind of expect in that area, but we were generating offers as well. So by the end of the first week off market, we had one offer significantly over asking, and by the end of the second week, we now have 2 competing offers, and a deal has just been tied up. I think it went live for all of about 3 days before the deal was finalised, way above the asking price, which is something you alluded to. Obviously, compared to last year, that probably wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if there's a little bit of a trend here, but so when we're talking, you're going back to that sort of 300 to 500 range, obviously the next potential step there is going from 5 to 7, or naturally it should do. And when I've seen the market sort of down, the sort of trends that I've been seeing is that sort of mid-range is sort of stuck when there isn't the confidence there. So again, it's just, for me, it's another indicator that we're probably starting to see a little bit of a shift in the market. And as I said, you look at obviously interest rates, they're starting to come down. Mortgage rates are coming down. So as I said, I feel now we have passed. But it's really interesting as well, like when we're talking this, so unfortunately, as I said, I'd love to be able to say we had about 10 of those properties, because we probably could have sold them 10 over. But there's been a couple of scenarios where, let's talk about it. Obviously, the people that viewed the property in the second part phase, so the second part launch, they weren't on our main list. They didn't know that this property was available, yet we've sold several properties in the last couple of weeks already without even hitting Rightmove. So again, this is something that we've been doing over the last few years anyway, but they didn't know about the property. And what's happened there is suddenly they've gone and viewed the property, and the next thing is now we're then letting them down because they haven't got their property details done. They've lost the property that they fell in love with because ultimately they were just waiting for it to hit Rightmove. So what's your sort of suggestions and what we've been talking to people about, obviously, in regards to this situation?
Well, yeah, definitely. The main message is make sure, if you are considering moving, you've got that bug, at least have it ready. Even if you're not on the market, at least have, like, for example, we do the off-market, pre-market launch, if you like. And if you're in a position where you feel like the bug's there to move, but you're only moving for one road and they don't come up too often, well, any decent agent would sit there, get all the details ready, maybe get a few people through the door along the way until ultimately you're ready. But you want to get a steady flow of people through the door, even if you don't want to commit to being on Rightmove or all the major portals. Ultimately, we've got offers, we've sold houses without it. So you could end up in a position where, you're off market, you're prepped, ready to go, and one or two things will happen. You'll either have an offer while you're off market that can allow you to move to a home that's just popped on the market that suits, or ultimately, we just keep it there, ready for when the right home pops up. But it's just having some level of being ready. You can put yourself into a false sense of security thinking, my house will just go on the market and sell within 3 days, so I'll just wait for the right place to come up, view that, put an offer in, and then mine will sell overnight for 20 million over the asking price. The reality of the market is that's not always true. So it's quite painful having to tell certain buyers that, because they're not in that position and they're not ready on their side of things, that they've missed out. So main message is make sure, if the bug's there, at least have something off market with a trusted agent. Don't just wait for the right place and try and make it all happen in a day.
I think there's a couple of things that you've just said then. It's not disagreeing with anything that you've just said. Now, when you say about a decent agent, right, I think sometimes as the consumer or somebody potentially selling the house, they've got no idea what we're actually doing. And this is what we're trying to highlight to a lot of people, is what we actually do. So we don't just rely on the portals. So if you're waiting and you're thinking about moving at this very moment in time, and again, what we've found and the data shows us, generally, somebody that's thinking about selling their house now is probably going to move in 9 months' time. So if you are one of those people that are thinking, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to wait for that property to come onto the market, you never know, that might be live with us already. So we have a heads up system that you can register into, and you can just sit there dormant. And over my career, and I know exactly why people don't want to register with agents, is because they are fed up of being bombarded and sold to time and time again every single week. They've got a property to sell. Are you coming on the market? It's an old estate agency tactic, is just hound you until you get bored. So I understand the people that don't want to register, yet we're slightly different in what we do. So I feel, for me, if you're thinking of selling, just give us a call or register into our heads up system. You can find it on our website. Click here, shall we say. But it's so I think for me, that's the best advice at this very moment in time. You talked also about once you've seen that property as well. It's not as simple as just getting that property live either, is it? So ultimately, there's various things that we need to do. We are governed by anti-money laundering regulations, so we have to prove your ID. We need a questionnaire, and ultimately, we need to get a photographer out. And I feel there's some agents that may well be able to do it within 2 hours, but they're probably doing their photos on an iPhone or something like those lines. So again, when you're talking about quality, you want to be going and launching to the market with a decent description, decent photographs and decent video. Because again, ultimately the views of we can see go through the roof. So you've got a better chance than of selling your home.
No, definitely. And it would just appeal to more people, the better the marketing. You can't sort of cut corners or rush that. I can't see any property that's ever gone onto the market taken with iPhone photos, based on your example, that's got the money that maybe that home did deserve. And I know obviously it doesn't change the physical home itself, but it's just that sort of impression that it might have on buyers, just to add to that point, really.
There's one little statistic here. So let's talk about withdrawals, because looking at just quickly at this figure here, so year on year, they climbed 0.99%. But the one alarming thing is, if you're looking over the 5-year average, this is now nearly 23% higher than the 5-year average. So what could be a reason for people coming onto market and then withdrawing? What would your views be on that?
It could be a lot of things. Obviously, if you compare it over the last 5 years, like we've sort of alluded to already, the market has gone up and down. There's certainly been times in the last 5 years where confidence has been low. It is a disappointing statistic, especially where, we have our reservation agreements. It's in the government guideline for selling, so they're trying to.
This is more withdrawals. This one,
but more
withdrawals. So people withdrawing from the market, yeah.
Yeah. Just in terms of having no offer and not selling, so that could be overvaluing as well, which is a huge problem. I get it, because again, back to the market being up and down, you're basing it on data, and sometimes you look at 2023, every 3 months it felt like the market had made some level of change. But yeah, overvaluing would be one of the main things. Or maybe the agent just not offering the right advice, knowing what it should sit at, but not offering the right advice just to sort of win the business.
Well, it's interesting as well, because it's... I just casted my mind back to one that I spoke to at the end of last week, and I only went out to the property last year, and again I gave him an opinion on where I felt the property was worth based on comparable data. So it's not actually giving them the actual value of the home. It's just based on what's out on the market, the demand, the confidence, etc. He come back to me this time round, and obviously his expectations was it was X last year and it's going to be more this year. And if you looked at what was selling this time round, there was a 25,000 difference in where I was suggesting last year. So I feel sometimes customers get cut up on the fact that we've come out and valued the property, but I could have said to him, yeah, no problem, it's going to take it on at that sort of level. But now a year's passed, I don't feel we're going to achieve that figure last year. So again, I can't really comment for most agents. I can only comment for me in the past, and maybe I'd have probably taken that property on the market if I wasn't any more experienced than where I was now. I'd have just been, yeah, that's fine, let's stick it on the market, and then before you know it, it would have actually come off the market. So it's, again, there could be a number of things there. What else could we pull from that?
Well, in terms of the withdrawals taken away from agencies, people's circumstances changing, and by that I mean what they're looking to buy. So we've already discussed people that have sort of, they've found a place, they're not quite in a position to proceed, but they've had something verbally agreed, let's say, and then it sells to somebody else that's just accelerated and been given the right advice or priced it aggressively to secure it. So there's sometimes that as well. Potentially they've lost their motivation, moving from one house. You hear that sort of pop up here and there. One of the offers for Park Drive was in a very similar boat. So it could be that. But then again, it all ties straight back to pricing it right from the start, the right advice, and ultimately attacking the market. Kind of, I don't like the term aggressive, but that sort of thing. You look at a Waverley that we had where that was a very aggressive, almost too aggressive. It had the result, but yeah, so it just depends how much you want it in that situation. But yeah, that could be another factor.
Yeah, I think it's I'm just trying to tie it into a little bit of a post that I see earlier on today, and there was somebody who's actually commented on a post. So they were saying about where an agent was actually pricing the property, and ultimately they wanted to put it on. It ended up being about 10% more. It's the lower end of the market, but they wanted to try it. It would have been 15% higher than what the actual agent said. And there was a couple of people in there commenting that they felt that the agent was just commission breath and that all they wanted to do was get the deal done. And somebody quoted, they put their property on the market and they're glad that they tried the higher figure because ultimately they tried it at 850 and ultimately they ended up bringing it down eventually to 750 and then they sold it at 745. But their view was that at least I tried the higher figure. At least in my head now I know that it wasn't worth that. And it's a really interesting point because I look at that and I think actually that 745, if they would have marketed that correctly at the beginning, would they have got close towards 800 based on what we've dealt with? So I can understand the somewhat logic. Yes, the person thought it was just commission breath for the estate agent, which in some cases it may well be, but it's not always the case. We know that if you go onto the market too high and get it wrong, the likelihood is, based on data, you're going to end up worse off than if you would have priced it more clean at the beginning.
Yeah, it is true. Obviously, both sides of that, you could speculate that they were happy that they tried it, it didn't work. But then obviously you can speculate that if they went on at the right price at the first place, they would have had a better result. I think the reality is they would have, based on both examples, you would have been better off or equal. But the only difference would have been if you were equal, you would have been maybe 6 months quicker. Mm-hmm. You would have been moved, got your keys. So... yeah, you can speculate both sides, but the reality is pricing it right from the start. The data's there to suggest that you'll have a better result, and equal parts it will be much quicker.
Yeah. This is the one that I'm going to be all over, and it's fall throughs. And this is crazy. Now, if the market had been different last year, as in a negative market, then I could have thought, okay, well, look, the market's going down, you could expect this to be. A staggering figure is year on year, fall throughs have increased by 11%, 11.39%, and that's sitting at 4.17% over the last 5-year average. And that's taken into account 2023 when there was a dip in the market. So it wouldn't surprise me that people are pulling out there. That's, again, another worrying stat that last year it was higher. And just screams to me the importance that we've banged on about all last year of reservation agreements and how important they are. So I feel there's a lot of people that we're speaking to, and again, I feel we've got, it's not so much selling it in my opinion. When you look at data like that and people come to you and say, oh, well, actually, I don't want to do that, I've done it before. The likelihood is you've got a very, very high percentage there. Your property may fall through. And if you're looking at the stats, it's 1 in 3.
Exactly, which is just wild. No estate agent ever goes, right, congratulations, we've tied up the deal. By the way, just to let you know, you've got 2/3 chance of this working. No one says that. So maybe it's that aspect that people just don't know.
Yeah.
Because if you asked anyone from the street, I would bet all my money that they wouldn't come up with 1 in 3. They'd think, oh, maybe, 10% at a push. But reservation agreements, they're in a government guideline for selling. They protect you on a purchase. They protect you on a sale. It keeps everyone honest. And it's everything else that links to it as well, which make them work. It's not just the agreement themselves. It's what the seller has to do before the agreement, such as the property information questionnaire, where anything that needs to be highlighted let's highlight everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, up front, be honest from the start. And then your buyer is happy. They're aware of potential pitfalls, and it will avoid the whole renegotiation down the line, or a potential fall through, which is obviously the topic that we're on.
And I think if you look, as I said, if you go back to when speaking with buyers have always said, oh, it's just another money-making activity from our point of view. Obviously, we don't make any money from them. Look at, for instance, this Park Drive person, like the Park Drive buyer. That they were very, very keen because they wanted to be protected because they knew that there were other people interested. So I feel, as I said, there are a couple of reasons here that it's given, obviously, is again like the sort of confidence in the market. But for me, just because there's talks of a market going down, that doesn't really give somebody the right to actually withdraw from the deal. So that would be deemed as unreasonable. But the importance of them, I can't shout loud enough on those.
Well, exactly that. And like you look at Park Drive, you've got 2 people that really, really want it. One person that's paid significantly over and wants to have a reservation agreement for that peace of mind. Because they know that up until the day of exchange here in the UK, that seller could just go, you know what, I'll go with the other offer actually. I'll change my mind. Which they're well within their right to do. Do I agree with it? Maybe not. but my opinion doesn't matter because it doesn't change reality. So hence why we offer the reservation agreements, just so everyone's protected. It's not a ploy to make money, like obviously you've highlighted. And also, it's not just to protect the seller, as this is a perfect example.
Definitely. So let's talk sellers and buyers here. So if you're a potential seller at the moment listening to this podcast, what would your top tips be to any potential seller thinking of selling at the moment?
Always test the market before launching to the major portals. You never know what you might end up with, like for example Park Drive significantly over. Imagine if we just went to market at that price, would we have just got that price? It's always good to test. Secondly, don't go and make that decision once you've found the house that mentally you've moved into already. If you've got the bug of moving and it's on your mind, and it has been for a matter of months maybe, you keep checking Rightmove every day, it's worth going ahead. Because even if, let's say, you go on the market, 2 weeks later you get a decent offer, negotiate it to a price that's fair, and then sell, but there's nothing out there, obviously it's stuff that we do leaflet drops, we'll go door to door in certain areas and just say, look, you might be thinking of moving, we've got somebody that's keen on the area, why don't we just do something like a one-off viewing? You never know what you might find. You've done it for that lady on Simpson Road before, comes to mind. She wanted to be on one specific side, didn't she, with a south-facing garden, and you and the team went door to door dropping letters and you found one and secured it for her. So yeah, that would be a couple of tips there. Just make sure, and don't have that sort of fear. Did I mention price?
You sort of that on the test in the market, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel one of the ones that I would certainly have, and again, it's just giving a little bit more context to what you've just said there, is that if you're thinking of selling, get your property on the market as soon as possible. That is the best advice I can give. You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what's off market at the moment. So for me, if you're serious about actually getting onto the market, let's go back to actually like looking at the data and where we've been between, because we've had this Boxing Day launch that's now suddenly gone, and it was really interesting actually because there was just nearly as many price adjustments as there was new sales.
Definitely
not
new sales.
No,
not here in
sales.
Sittingbourne from Boxing Day.
So ultimately there was I'm gonna have to find the data in a minute, I should know it. 45 new listings, there was 33 price adjustments, and then there was 8 sales in the last couple of weeks. So for me, that Boxing Day launch hasn't had any real impact, and what we're now seeing now is we've got a number of people that we'll be launching imminently, but they're already getting viewings on their property. So, and we're now starting to see a shift in the market. So I've gone off a bit of a tangent there, but ultimately for me, it's if you're serious about selling, call a number of agents out, great, who are you happy with, boom, get it ready.
Yeah, no, definitely. And out of them 8 sales you mentioned, can I just highlight, based on my research, that one of them was launched on Boxing Day. The other 7 were older.
Yeah.
So this whole Boxing Day is the busiest day. And I've looked at the Rightmove data, it's fantastic. You've got properties there with 100 detailed views online, but not one inquiry. People just having a look.
Yeah.
What else are you going to do after spending 3 straight days with your family, I suppose?
Yeah, and I know we've gone past this now, and I don't want to keep talking about it, but it's just one of those bugbears of mine where agents sell it as the best thing since sliced bread, yet all their data is on a day or a week before, and ultimately lead up to Christmas, people stop looking. So there's always going to be more people looking. But as I said, they're not necessarily buying.
Exactly that. It doesn't help.
And there might be one buyer. You found the one buyer there. So that was a stat I didn't know. So well done there. But
that's it. It was a newer build house. I don't think it was. It might have been launched on accident. Who knows? But I don't think it had anything to do with the amount of people that looked at it on Boxing Day. But considering it sold on the 8th.
No. And even if it did, you wouldn't have been in competition. And ultimately, would you have got the best price for it?
You never know, do you?
So that's from obviously a seller's aspect. Buyers. What would you, because so I sort of talked about earlier on, there's been several deals that have been off market, and obviously these are buyers that we've already got on our system. If you're a buyer looking for a property right now, what would you be doing?
I would be checking social medias of all the estate agents in my town, work out, what do they do for me as a buyer. You'll find probably one of 2 different sort of styles. You'll find number one, it's all about selling, and we've sold this in the area, recently sold, same stuff you see everywhere. But you might see heads up property videos. You might see somebody talking about houses that they've been out to, properties that potentially come into the market. I'd be leaning towards them, registering my interest. That's kind of how you're going to get a head start on the market, whether you're a first-time buyer or house mover.
Now, are you talking us, or are you Because there's not many agents that do that.
No, there's not many. There are out there. Yeah. I mean, we're making a podcast for the UK, not Sittingbourne.
Okay, fair.
So they are out there. We know
corrected.
of them. Yeah, we know of them, especially those that are part of FIA, the Federation of Independent Estate Agents. So yeah, whatever town you're in, just look for that. Yes, to your point, it is quite rare, but that's ideal because you don't really want to be registering with 150 estate agents in your town or surrounding areas when you can just find the best 3 that are kind of proactive, get into their little cuddle zone and work out when your next home is available, not when it's available online. You want to get that head start, home mover or not, especially for first time buyers because you've got no chain, so you'll be seen not in a better light, but as a means to an end, you'll be a bit quicker. First time buyer, no chain behind you. So to some sellers, that's appealing. So definitely, if you're a first time buyer, but if you're a home mover as well, because you never know when your home is available. Sometimes it sells before you even know it exists.
I think this is my key tips from a buyer's perspective as well. And if you look at one of our most recent reviews, we actually didn't sell this person a property, yet they gave us a 5-star review because we were the only agent actually speaking to them. So for me, if you are thinking of potentially buying a property, I'd certainly register. So we're piggybacking off what you said there. I do agree. The key thing for me, though, is who's the most proactive estate agent. Now, ultimately, if you had a proactive agent, they would be picking up the phone and actually calling you about a property before it's even actually got the details done.
Yeah.
So I feel you can see who is active online, but ultimately then who is actually working from an old school perspective and actually picking up the phone, or are they waiting for you to ring them? So I'd certainly go there. For me, if you're a buyer, I would always suggest speaking to one of our mortgage advisors. You can click here and register into their diary direct if you wanted. But the key for me is to actually understand that you're telling me you can afford 300. Great, I need that backup. And if you can, then great. As long as we know you're in a proceedable position, you're going to be getting a call first. There's so many people at the moment that have been actually registering with us that actually haven't actually investigated their finances. They've gone online and their mortgage calculator says X. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean anything. So you really need to get one step ahead. Some mortgage advisors won't go to the in-depth search because they feel that, I don't know, actually, that could be quite...
No, I think it's just the access to them. But there's, you said a few, I think there's a few reasons why.
Yep.
Some don't. Some just don't have the access. Some that I've worked with previously, one of the mortgage advisors I used to work with, absolutely brilliant in every way, but had a tendency to only like 2 or 3 lenders. I spoke to him.
And was that lying in their pocket more so?
One would assume. Just moved to a nice grade 2 listed building. Sorry, mister. I'm not going to. Anyway, all jokes aside, some people do just have preferred lenders, whether it's financially motivated or not. But the best advice, you say, yep, speak to one of ours, of course, but speak to as many as possible. Because I spoke to 3. After the first one, I thought, oh God, this is never going to happen. After the second one, I thought, oh, actually, this is quite good. And then after viewing some houses, I needed that little bit more and just managed to stumble across one, which was a recommendation from an estate agent, and it worked. This was obviously before my time at Harrison's. Otherwise, I would have used Dylan, of course. Maybe I would have ended up in a bigger house if I did. Who knows? Maybe my month by month would have been nicer because he does have access to all the lenders, not just ones from a select panel.
And I think as if there is a mortgage advisor saying, oh, you don't need that until, well, to be honest, if you want to go and view a property, then ultimately we've got a duty of care to our seller. So we will want to see that you can afford that property. That's what, every time I've asked a seller, would you want us to qualify the buyer and make sure they can afford it before they view? 99 times out of 100, a seller will, well, of course I do. That's your job, isn't it? That is our job, yes. But it doesn't always happen. So for me, that is the strongest bit of advice. But ultimately, if you're taking the time then to go and send that to us, we know that you're actually serious about buying.
Yeah, definitely. And building off of that as well about, you said there that stuck with me, you might get advice, you don't need that yet. If you look at everything from a buyer or a seller's perspective that you will need at some point, there is no benefit to that mentality. We keep talking about people that have missed out because of this. They're not taking steps quick enough. Any negative emotional feeling you have within a property market, which could be losing a house, could be having a sale fall, number of things. If you have everything you need up front anyway, the likelihood of anything bad happening is minimised. That's why we get everything up front. And it's from a buyer and seller perspective. Get your mortgage in principle. Even instruct your solicitors from a sales side or even a purchase side. You know, you can start a file without an address you're purchasing, to my understanding, with certain solicitors. Just get everything done, and then you're not going to be behind.
Well, it's really interesting. Again, so going back to that, we've had a couple of case scenarios, haven't we, over the last couple of months, where a buyer gave us the information, but when we actually went to verify it with the mortgage advisor, because there was a change in price, he had to then go down the route, obviously finding another lender. And I recall, because it took them about a week, so we had the offer agreed subject to all of this, and then a week had gone by, we still hadn't got all the information because the person was away on holiday. And unfortunately, until we've got that confirmation, again, going back to that duty of care, you might have had an offer accepted. This isn't a fall through, by the way. You might have had that offer accepted, but it's subject to X. And ultimately, we did advise them going to speak to our mortgage advisor to help them out, but they wanted to stick with their current one. Our seller wanted us to continue with marketing, and unfortunately somebody else come in and picked them to the post because they were already proceedable. So I feel there's levels to this. One, really, if you want to go and view the property, you need it. But even on the scenario that an agent, even if you're viewing another property for another agent, if you go and view that property and you're not proceedable, the likelihood is, until you've got all of that confirmed, you're going to potentially miss out on the property. So there's a bigger picture here that if you go and find that house and fall in love with it based on what the online calculator said, and then suddenly you're 20 grand adrift, or you can't get the proof to us in time, you might have lost your ideal home. So for me, there's more to it than just going to view the property.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely spot on, and I learnt the hard way about the online calculators when I started as well. When I started looking, I think they're ego strokers more than anything. I mean, it was telling me I could borrow more than the house I actually purchased by quite a significant margin.
Well, it's good because they want to talk to you, didn't they?
Yeah, well, there you go. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh wow, nice. Might even be a detached for me. No, it unfortunately wasn't, but. Yeah, just speak to a real person, run the figures, and just be honest throughout, so you don't end up like the gentleman who unfortunately had some issues with the mortgage side of things and ultimately missed out.
Anything else you want to talk about at this very moment in time?
I think it's just going back to the message that we've been keep going to, is if you're planning on selling, sell. If you're planning on buying, get yourself registered. Get out there, because it's a really exciting time. I don't know how you're feeling about it all, but if I compare the first 13 days of this year to maybe the first 13 days of the past 2-3 years, this definitely is the most exciting for me. I think it's a great opportunity for buyers to move forward with lower interest rates. I think it's a great opportunity for sellers to get themselves on the market and go for something that, you know, there's a lot of people over the last 2 years that are thinking about selling that maybe didn't have the confidence in the market to do so, but I'm not seeing any of them, and I'm not hearing any of them pushbacks this year. So,
yeah, and again, all I said, I'd just go back through the archives, and I go back to 2016, there was an increase in the market, and then you get closer towards 2020, and there was Brexit. And what we were seeing then was the market bottleneck. And then in signs in 2020, and again, caveat, I'm not saying that the market's going to go up 10, 15, 20%. I've got no crystal ball. All I'm basing my opinions on is what I'm seeing in the market, and I'm seeing similar signs where there is a shift in confidence now. And unless there's something major like COVID, hopefully not, or anything along those lines, then I do feel we're in for a positive year, not only for sellers, but as you rightly said that actually, rates are coming back down again. So it's going to become more affordable. I know there's going to be people there that are saying they're still ridiculously high. The reality is...
I like to think that the rates are only a problem in line with house values anyway. And I like to think that now we're kind of sort of levelled out. I think, maybe when we were looking at sort of the rate I'm on, like that high 5%, and you look at the market maybe 18 months ago, you think, oh, that's not really in line. And you can understand why potentially the confidence wasn't there. But now it's like, it's worlds apart. And it's not looking like it's going to start going up again. Like, it might level out, it might go down, it might go up. But I don't think that's a fear in this current market with the mentality that sellers and buyers seem to be having. There's a lot more sort of direction, could be the word, especially from certain families that I'm helping sell at the moment, houses I'm going out to. People just don't know what happened over Christmas, but they know where they're going, they know how they want to get there, and they need our help to make it happen. And that's the best circumstance you can look for. And it's a great thing to look for a buyer as well, having a seller that knows where they're heading, where they're going, what they want, because ultimately you can't move into their home until they're sorted.
Yeah. I think, as I said, I think going back to you said you don't know what's happened. I think if you look at last year, obviously with the budget and everything else, there's talk, like how many reports did we read last year the market was going to crash? Like there's so many different things, so many different opinions. Ours is just an opinion.
Yeah.
But my opinion's always based on what I see activity-wise.
I thought you was going to say it's always right then. Huh? I thought you was going to say your opinion's always right.
No comment.
Depends who you're asking. It really does. No, you are. You're worth listening to. You've been in the industry a very, very long time, especially
Don't
this
brand
area.
knows me. You're right.
You can tell he's been in it for a long time. Look at the haircut on the boy. No. Anything else, Chris? I mean,
No,
we've covered a lot.
We'll wrap that one up today. So thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much.